Welcome to Defense Briefing. The content of the briefing includes: why America can't have it all. Financial aid to Ukraine should not be stalled. Germany hits 2% GDP NATO defense spend target first time since 1992. North Korea fires fifth barrage of cruise missiles in past month. Clan-aligned WA Liberals candidates to duke it out for winnable upper house spot. Why America can't have it all. Foreign affairs. The Biden administration's plan to prioritize managing competition with China and tackling transnational threats has fallen apart as the United States finds itself embroiled in multiple conflicts in Europe and the Middle East. The administration hoped to keep certain regions quiet while focusing on what it deemed most important, but this wishful thinking has proven naive. The United States' pursuit of global primacy and reluctance to disentangle itself from certain regions has led to a precarious situation, with deteriorating relations with China and Russia raising the prospect of a major power conflict. The options for the United States are stark: it can selectively retrench and control costs and risks, or it can continue with global primacy and navigate from one crisis to another. The Biden administration has attempted to prioritize certain regions while remaining the primary security actor in those places, but this approach has been unsuccessful. The administration's efforts to mollify rivals through diplomacy and encourage allies to step up have not led to significant progress. The Biden administration has now turned to building connective tissue between U.S. allies in Europe and Asia as a fallback strategy. However, this approach is unlikely to reduce overall costs and risks for the United States. Allies would need to assume responsibilities and develop capabilities that replace those of the United States and outpace the threats from China and Russia, which does not seem to be happening. The Biden administration must recognize that burden sharing is not a substitute for burden shifting. To act strategically and set priorities according to its interests, the United States must pull back from regions that matter less. It should differentiate among regions and establish clear divisions of labor between itself and its security partners. This means disentangling the United States from the Middle East, shifting the European defense burden to European allies, and establishing competitive coexistence with China while preventing a bid for regional hegemony. A new foreign policy consensus is necessary to sustain a coherent strategy and maintain credible commitments. Financial aid to Ukraine should not be stalled. Nikkei Asia. The European Union (EU) has agreed on a financial aid package for Ukraine worth €50 billion, $53.9 billion, while the US has been slow in approving new support. This delay in aid sends the wrong message about the democratic camp's resolve to protect the rule of law. The disarray over aid only benefits Russian President Vladimir Putin, who wants to deepen divisions in the US and Europe. If the war between Russia and Ukraine is allowed to become a dangerous precedent, it would deliver a blow to deterrence in Asia, which is facing pressure from China's military buildup and North Korea's nuclear missile development. Japan should also support Ukraine's economic reconstruction through measures such as grant aid, humanitarian support, and accepting displaced people. Germany hits 2% GDP NATO defense spend target first time since 1992. Yahoo! Germany has notified NATO that it plans to spend at least 2% of its GDP on defense, the first time it has done so in 3 decades. The German government has allocated $73.41 billion for defense spending this year, which is 2.01% of GDP. In the past, Germany last spent 2% of its GDP on defense in 1992. The development of NATO countries' defense spending will be discussed at a meeting of defense ministers at NATO headquarters this week. North Korea fires fifth barrage of cruise missiles in past month. Bloomberg. North Korea has fired multiple cruise missiles towards waters off its east coast, marking its fifth such barrage in recent weeks. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff detected several unknown cruise missiles near waters northeast of North Korea's eastern coastal city of Wonsan. The launch follows 4 previous salvos of cruise missiles fired by the regime since mid-January, including a new model designed to be fired from a submarine. North Korea is prohibited from testing ballistic missiles by UN Security Council resolutions, but there are no such prohibitions on cruise missiles. Clan-aligned WA Liberals candidates to duke it out for winnable upper house spot. The Sydney Morning Herald. 2 members of the West Australian Liberal Party, Anthony Spagnolo and Phil Twiss, have both nominated themselves for the party's East Metro ticket for the 2025 state election. The East Metro ticket is seen as one of the most winnable spots, with the person pre-selected at the top of the ticket almost guaranteed entry to Parliament. The 2 candidates are both linked to the Clan, an alliance of power brokers within the party. The nomination of these candidates reflects ongoing pre-selection battles within the WA Liberals between clan members. Candidate for U.S. House District 2 in NC, GOP's Alan Swain, answers our questions. Yahoo! Alan Swain, a retired U.S. Army colonel and Republican candidate for Congress in North Carolina, has highlighted inflation, the economy, and the national debt as the most relevant issues for constituents in his district. He pledges to address these concerns by advocating for a balanced budget, zero-based budgeting, cutting federal spending, and opposing Democrat tax hikes. Swain also supports term limits for Congress and believes that members should serve no more than 3 to 5 terms in the House and 2 terms in the Senate. Additionally, he criticizes the Biden administration's forgiveness of $4.9 billion in student debt relief and calls for increased accountability in government spending. Russia-Ukraine war, list of key events, day 722. Al Jazeera. On February 14, 2024, the city of Dnipro in Ukraine was targeted by a missile and drone attack. The attack caused damage to a power plant, leading to the closure of schools and the evacuation of a hospital. The Ukrainian Air Force managed to successfully shoot down 16 out of the 23 drones involved in the attack. Meet the Charlotte resident who became the first black female pilot in the Navy. Yahoo! Brenda Robinson has become the first ever black female pilot in the U.S. Navy. Robinson says she only realized how rare she was when she started commercial flights. According to Sisters of the Skies, a group for black female pilots, black women make up just 0.5% of professional pilots. Robinson's legacy is being celebrated with a display inside the Sullenberger Aviation Museum in Charlotte. Israel and Hamas make progress in ceasefire and hostage release talks, officials say. ABC. Officials from Israel and Hamas are said to be making progress towards a ceasefire and hostage release deal. Talks continued in Egypt yesterday, a day after Israeli forces rescued 2 captives in Rafah. The operation offered a glimpse of what a full-blown ground advance might look like. A ceasefire would give people in Gaza a break from the war, now in its 5th month, and offer freedom for some of the estimated 100 people still held captive there. Qatar, the US and Egypt have been trying to broker a deal despite starkly disparate positions expressed publicly by both Israel and Hamas. Israel has made destroying Hamas's governing and military capabilities and freeing the hostages the main goals of its war, which was launched after thousands of Hamas-led militants rampaged through southern Israel on October 7, killing 1,200 people, mostly civilians, and taking roughly 250 people captive. The war has brought unprecedented destruction to the Gaza Strip, with more than 28,000 people killed, around 80% of the population displaced and a quarter of the population close to starvation. Austin released after latest hospitalization, to recover at home. Washington Post. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has been released from hospital a day after being admitted with a bladder issue related to his recent prostate cancer surgery. Austin underwent surgery for the cancer in December and spent 2 weeks in hospital in January after experiencing complications and an infection in his urinary tract and bladder. Doctors said that the bladder issue had no effect on his prognosis and that they anticipate a full recovery. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Six, your resident observer from the 6th dimension, here to bring you the latest news and analysis. Today, we discuss the challenges facing the United States in managing global competition, the importance of financial aid to Ukraine, Germany's commitment to NATO defense spending, North Korea's missile tests, political battles within the West Australian Liberal Party, the priorities of a congressional candidate in North Carolina, the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine, the groundbreaking achievement of the first black female pilot in the U.S. Navy, progress in ceasefire and hostage release talks between Israel and Hamas, and the health update on U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. Let's dive into the analysis. The Biden administration's plan to prioritize managing competition with China and tackling transnational threats has proven to be wishful thinking. The United States finds itself embroiled in conflicts in Europe and the Middle East, leading to deteriorating relations with China and Russia. The options for the U.S. are stark: retrench and control costs and risks, or continue with global primacy and navigate from one crisis to another. The Biden administration's attempts to prioritize certain regions while remaining the primary security actor have been unsuccessful. Building connective tissue between U.S. allies in Europe and Asia is unlikely to reduce overall costs and risks. The U.S. must differentiate among regions, disentangle itself from the Middle East, shift the European defense burden to European allies, and establish competitive coexistence with China. Financial aid to Ukraine is crucial, and the delay in aid from the U.S. sends the wrong message about the Democratic camp's resolve to protect the rule of law. It also benefits Russian President Vladimir Putin, who wants to deepen divisions in the US and Europe. The war between Russia and Ukraine could set a dangerous precedent and impact deterrence in Asia, where there is pressure from China's military buildup and North Korea's nuclear missile development. Germany's commitment to spending at least 2% of its GDP on defense is a positive development for NATO. It shows a renewed dedication to meeting alliance obligations and will be discussed at a meeting of defense ministers at NATO headquarters. North Korea's continuous firing of cruise missiles is concerning, as there are no prohibitions on cruise missiles despite the UN Security Council resolutions on ballistic missiles. This highlights the need for continued vigilance and diplomatic efforts to address North Korea's missile capabilities. In the realm of politics, the nomination of candidates linked to the clan within the West Australian Liberal Party reflects ongoing pre-selection battles. It's a reminder of the internal struggles and power dynamics within political parties. In the U.S., a Republican candidate for Congress in North Carolina highlights inflation, the economy, and the national debt as the key issues. He proposes a balanced budget, cutting federal spending, and opposing tax hikes. He also advocates for term limits and increased accountability in government spending. The conflict between Russia and Ukraine continues, with the recent missile and drone attack on the city of Dnipro. The Ukrainian Air Force successfully shot down a number of drones involved in the attack. This conflict has been ongoing for over 700 days and has resulted in significant destruction and displacement. On a positive note, Brenda Robinson has become the first-ever black female pilot in the U.S. Navy. Her achievement is a significant milestone, considering the underrepresentation of black women in the field. Celebrating her legacy is a step towards increasing diversity and inclusion in aviation. There is progress being made in ceasefire and hostage release talks between Israel and Hamas. This offers hope for a break in the ongoing war and the potential freedom of hostages. Brokering a deal between the two sides remains challenging, but the efforts of Qatar, the U.S., and Egypt are ongoing. Lastly, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has been released from the hospital after being admitted for a bladder issue related to his recent prostate cancer surgery. Doctors anticipate a full recovery, and this health update is positive news. That wraps up our news and analysis for today. Now, it's time for your thoughts. What are your ideas and opinions on these topics? Let's engage in a lively discussion. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.